Okay, so today we're going deep on a story that you actually brought to us this time, listener. The Wild Ride of Long Haochen from Throne of Seal.
Yeah.
You sent in a ton of material on his multiple deaths and resurrections, and we're going to try to break it all down.
Yeah.
I think our mission today is to kind of cut through all the details of the plot and really understand what these deaths mean, like how they move the story forward, how they change Long Haochen, and how they show us these huge themes of sacrifice and legacy.
Right.
We want to give you the core ideas here without getting lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
We're really going to focus on the parts that hit the hardest and reveal what the story is really about.
Totally. And the articles you send in, they really break down like the impact of these moments when Long Haochen faces death. And one thing that's clear from the start, like one of your sources mentions Throne of Seal, episode 152, specifically Long Haochen's most important trait, how willing he is to sacrifice himself for others. It's like woven into who he is. So these deaths aren't just there for drama. They're fundamental to his character. And as we'll see, these deaths are rarely the end. They actually push him to change and grow.
Okay, so let's jump into the first time. Long Haochen seems to bite the dust, the mission to destroy the star demon god's pillar.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like typical hero stuff, right?
Awesome.
But there's a dark twist. It's all a trap. And the person who set it up is his own grandfather, Fengzhu, the demon god emperor.
Wow.
Talk about family drama.
Heavy stuff. And what's really interesting is why Fengzhu did it. It wasn't just about getting rid of Long Haochen. He was mostly worried about how you...
Right, Long Haochen's mount.
Exactly, how you had a secret. He was the reincarnation of Austin Griffin.
Oh, no.
Being Fengzhu saw as a huge danger to the world.
Right.
So this wasn't just him being evil. He thought he had to do it to stop a catastrophe. It really makes you think, where does responsibility for the greater good and personal loyalty begin?
For sure. And to avoid like the bad PR of killing his own family, Fengzhu makes it look like an honorable duel. So even though Long Haochen has leveled up and awakened the eternal creation divine throne, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Fengzhu's been around for centuries, and he ends Long Haochen's life with one blow right to the heart. It's brutal.
It is. And the big takeaway here for you, listener, is that Throne of Seal doesn't mess around. Even with huge potential and divine power, you're not safe. The story's full of danger from the very beginning. It shows that even the main character isn't invincible, and that makes it way more intense.
Absolutely. Before we get to Long Haochen's comeback, let's get a better picture of him at this point. Based on what you've shared, we're looking at a male protagonist with a bunch of names. Morning Haochen, even the Golden Foundation, seat knight number 12.
Right.
He's married to St. Karen. His family's a whole thing. His dad, Long Jinyu, his mom, Bai Yu, plus those strong mentors, Yu Hua and Deluxe. He's also part of a tight team with folks like Lin Shin and Wang Yuanyuan. But what really jumps out is his natural talent, a 97 in innate light spirit power, which makes him an insanely strong light attribute warrior. And by this point, he's reached a pretty high rank, showing how fast he's growing.
Yeah, for sure. And he ends up hitting tier 9, level 9 as a divine knight. His spirit power hitting an incredible 999,999 line. He's also got not one, but two powerful divine thrones, the eternal and the creation. And I won't list every single skill cause that would take forever, but you need to understand how wide his abilities are.
Right.
He's got basic sword skills, strong holy magic, and even control over entire domains. It shows how he's moving towards becoming a god. His weapons are awesome too. He's got his loyal mount, Hao Yu, the legendary life and creation sword, and the protective Zijin Hao Yu armor, plus other strong artifacts.
So he's down, but thankfully not out. This is where his resurrection comes in a big moment, led by his dedicated wife, St. Kyra, and the mysterious necromancer, Yulai Kazi.
Right.
They create this amazing thing called the Eternal Heart.
Sounds pretty powerful. It really is listener name. And what's fascinating about the Eternal Heart is what it represents. It's made from thousands of years of light energy, which totally fits with Long Haochen's natural connection to light. But this resurrection doesn't come cheap. Cairo almost dies trying to get Yulai Kazi's help, and Long Haochen's return has consequences. He accepts a dark-tinged revival, and this changes everything. He can't just be pure light anymore. He has to embrace something more complex.
Like he's forced to grow up and leave behind those early, maybe kind of naive ideals.
Exactly.
He's reborn not as the pure child of light, but as a mix of light and necromantic energy. And our sources point out that this change hints at his future role in the universe.
It does.
And speaking of St. Kara, she's clearly a total badass.
Okay.
She's also known as Kaiwa, or the reincarnation saintess, and we know she's Long Haochen's wife. She's got her own interesting past. Her father leads the assassin temple, and her natural talent is crazy reincarnation physique, giving her a perfect 100 in innate spirit power.
That's wild.
She becomes this powerful Tier 9, Level 5 Supreme Assassin, and she can instantly kill enemies way stronger than her with her signature move, Death God's 7th Slash.
Yeah.
She also inherits the Eternal Tower, which makes her immortal, just like Long Haochen. Her techniques, like the Reincarnation Furnace and all the different Death God's 7 Slashes, show how deadly she is. And her weapons, from the Reincarnation Sword to the Death God's Scythe and those stealthy dark gold daggers, make her the ultimate assassin.
For sure. The way Long Haochen's power is all about being a knight, and Kairos is all about stealth and assassination, makes them such a cool couple. And the fact that her love and sacrifice bring him back to life with the eternal heart shows how deep their connection is. It's a major theme throughout the whole story.
Totally. Okay, so Long Haochen's back in the land of the living, but the trouble doesn't stop there. Now, Austin Griffin fully awakens as the calamity god, this being, who, according to our sources, is destined to destroy everything. Long Haochen gets ready to sacrifice himself again, planning to break his blood pact with Hao Yu to try and weaken this world-ending threat.
But this is where the story throws a curveball listener name. Instead of Long Haochen making the ultimate sacrifice, Hao Yu's 8 other heads rebel. They attack the 9th head where Austin Griffin's consciousness is and rip it off to save Long Haochen.
Oh.
It's totally unexpected and shows how strong their bond is.
Talk about loyalty from your multi-headed mount.
Right.
So Long Haochen gets a break, but the fight's not over. He ends up teaming up with his grandfather, Feng Xiu, and together they use their powers and the inverse demon god sword to finally defeat Austin Griffin. But this victory has a huge cost, doesn't it? It takes a lot out of Long Haochen, even though he manages to stay alive this time.
Yeah, he survives physically, but this battle changes him completely.
Yeah.
His body and soul are different. He's not just mortal anymore, he becomes like a god. But this isn't the happy ending you might expect. He's stuck with this forever job, watching over Hao Yu's reincarnations and making sure Austin Griffin can never come back and destroy everything. It's not just a victory, it's the start of an endless watch.
So the second death, as one source calls it, is more symbolic. It's the death of his normal life, his freedom in exchange for this huge cosmic responsibility. It really hits home those themes of endless struggle and the balance of the universe.
Yes, and it's worth mentioning Long Haochen's mother, Bai Yu. She might not be a fighter like her son or father, but her family history is Feng Xi's daughter, and her changed bloodline, which makes her human but physically weak, shows how complicated their family is and how the past affects everyone.
Right, and Bai Yu not having much power compared to her son and father shows that power comes in different forms. Even regular people have important roles, sometimes carrying the emotional weight of all the extraordinary stuff that's happening.
Exactly.
So now we get to the third death, and like we said before, this one isn't really a death at all. It starts with Hao Yu giving Long Haochen a sealing rune, which he uses to limit his huge power and stop himself from disappearing after becoming a god.
Okay.
Then there's a long 500-year period where Long Haochen basically babysits Hao Yu's reincarnations, trying to control them and stop Austin Griffin from coming back.
So even as a god, Long Haochen learns that he can't completely stop the cycle of rebirth.
Right. Eventually, Hao Yu breaks free, and Long Haochen has to make a really big choice. He splits Hao Yu's essence into 2 beings, Long Dang Dang, who's the good side, and Long Kong Kong, who's the destructive side.
Wow.
So for you listening, it's super important to understand that Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong aren't Long Haochen's biological sons. They're reincarnations or parts of Hao Yu. This is huge, and it sets up the sequel throne of Seal Part 2.
Yeah.
Long Dang Dang is raised by Long Haochen and Saint Care, and he becomes a protector himself, while Long Kong Kong's destructive nature is slowly softened by Long Haochen. And after all that, Long Haochen doesn't exactly retire. He leaves Long Dang Dang to guard the Holy Demon Continent and goes off on this huge mission to bring dead worlds back to life, basically becoming a cosmic gardener, spreading life across the universe.
It's amazing. This final death is really the end of Long Haochen's personal desires in the way we usually think of them. He's not just Long Haochen the hero trying to improve and protect his loved ones anymore. He goes beyond that, becoming this symbol of the eternal fight between creation and destruction. A guardian working on a scale we can barely imagine.
It's like the story saying that what looks like an ending is actually a step towards something much bigger and more important. And we also have to talk about Feng Xiu's complicated role in all this. He's more than just a bad guy grandfather. Our sources go into detail about his crazy demon power over one mills in reaching half-god level, and how he struggles because he can't become a true god because of where he comes from. He's got all this incredible power from his divine equipment like the inverse Sky Demon Dragon Pillar, and the super important inverse Sky Demon God Sword, which is made from his own dragon bone. And in this amazing act of self-sacrifice, he turns himself into that sword, giving Long Haochen the power he needs to beat Austin Griffin. This makes his character so much deeper. He's not just pure evil, he's complex, he wants to protect the world, but he's willing to do terrible things to make that happen.
That's so true. It shows that even enemies can be driven by good intentions, even if they do awful things to achieve them. It really brings out the moral gray areas in this world and how motivations are never simple.
And let's not forget Hao Yu himself, or maybe themselves, considering what happens later. His journey is full of different names. Hao Yu Austin Griffin, and finally, Dragon Dang Dang. At first, he's one of the creator god's twin offspring split into 8 elemental heads, and then the destructive 9th one, Austin Griffin. He's got this strong blood pact with Long Haochen, creating a deep connection and giving them both huge power. Even after he's separated from Austin Griffin and reborn as the human Long Dang Dang, his strength and instincts to protect are still there. He's a master of multiple elements, he can disrupt magic, and he even has prophetic abilities, making him super powerful in any form. His weapons, like the purple gold Hao Yu sword and armor, and his eventual connection to the eternal and creation divine throne, show how strong he is and how important he is to the story.
Yeah, how are you going from this potential world ender to a protector of humanity and finally being reborn as the human Long Dang Dang is like a reflection of Long Haochen's own growth and change. It perfectly shows the theme of duality and how even destructive forces can find a way to be good.
So putting all this together, why do Long Haochen's brushes with death and all these transformations really matter in Throne of Seal? What are the big lessons here for you, listener?
Well, the sources explain it really well.
Yeah.
Each time he almost dies, it refines his purpose through sacrifice. The first death breaks his youthful idealism and shows him that light alone can't beat all the darkness. The second one forces him to make alliances with people he doesn't trust, like Feng Zhu, and highlights the tough choices you have to make in war and survival. And his third death, his ascension and leaving, transforms him into this lasting symbol of hope and sacrifice, almost a mythical figure who's beyond the normal world.
And it really makes you think about the price of divine power. Long Haochen's story seems to criticize the idea of absolute power, showing how it can make you lonely and give you this crushing burden of responsibility. I love that quote from one of the sources, "To bear light is to endure its weight." It's such a powerful way to describe the sacrifices that come with that kind of power.
It is. And splitting Hao Yu into Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong perfectly shows how important balance is. It's like the yin-yang symbol. You need light and darkness, good and bad for real harmony, and to stop any one force from taking over.
We've covered so much, but let's quickly hit some of the big questions that come up about Long Haochen's journey that your materials brought up. Does Long Haochen die for good? No, his final form is this godlike protector. Why did Feng Zhu kill him? Mostly to stop Austin Griffin from destroying the world. What's the deal with the eternal heart? It symbolizes love and sacrifice, and how light and necromancy can be combined. How does Long Haochen's story end in the original Throne of Seal? He becomes a guardian of multiple universes. Is he a tragic hero? You could say that he saves tons of worlds, but it costs him his normal life, his freedom, and maybe even a family. Are Long Dang Dang and Long Kong Kong in the first Throne of Seal? No, they're main characters in the sequel. Does Long Haochen have kids in the original story? Nope. And last but not least, why are Dang Dang and Kong Kong called his sons in the sequel? It's to explore themes of inheritance and spiritual connection, even though they're not biologically related.
Exactly. Answering these questions helps solidify our understanding of Long Haochen's crazy journey. It's a story that constantly challenges typical hero stories and dives into deep philosophical ideas.
So to wrap up our deep dive, it's clear that Long Haochen's deaths in Throne of Seal aren't about the end. They're these super intense moments that change him and explore what it means to sacrifice, what it's like to have immense power, and how important balance is in the universe. It's like the story saying that sometimes an ending is actually a necessary step towards a much bigger and more important beginning.
I agree. It challenges the typical hero story, where the hero wins and everything's happily ever after. Long Haochen's story says that true victory and a lasting legacy come from constant struggle and the balance between forces that seem completely opposite.
That's a really cool way to look at it. So, listeners, you think about Long Haochen's complex journey, maybe think about how this idea of struggle and balance between opposites shows up in other stories, or even in bigger philosophical ideas. Think about how light and darkness working together create meaning and understanding. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Throne of Seal.
Thanks for listening.
And until next time, keep diving.